Hi guys, welcome to 7 Steps to Brand Your Business. So many people think that branding is all about just a pretty logo and maybe the colors that you choose to use, but really branding is about so much more. So we're going to talk about everything that you need to think of to build a proper, long living brand for your business. Number 1. So the first step to building a really good brand is to really know who you are, inside and out, everything about you. So what do you like? What do you not like? What do you want to represent? What is your why? What are your core values? Until you know exactly who you are, you're just going to try and be all things to all people. And if history is any indicator, that is so not true. You cannot be that. You have to be you. And the more authentic you are to your brand and to your business ethos, which is kind of what this is all about, what is your ethos? The more authentic you are to that, the longer your brand will live, the more consistent you'll be, the more people will resonate with you. A lot of us, we are our brands, especially in the small business community. So if you're trying to have your brand represent something that you're not, or resonate with people who aren't really your people, you'll find that it feels like you're doing an uphill battle. You're going to be arguing a lot against yourself, really. And so really get into your core, figure that out. A good example of a brand who's done this really well is Apple. You don't hear them sending mixed messages. You don't go into an Apple store and walk out with dog food. You'll notice that all of Apple's new product lines have been years in the making. It's not like, oh, digital watches are super popular right now. Let's produce a digital watch. It took them a long time to produce the Apple Watch. Apple Home is something that they weren't necessarily the leader in a lot of these markets. They do it right, and they make sure that whatever they produce really matches in with their whole branding world and represents them in their entirety. And you can't do something like that if you don't know who you are. Number 2. Next, you need to figure out who you're talking to. Who is your target market? What are these people like? And again, it's super important that you know who you are from step number 1 before you figure out who your target market is, because you want to be working with the kind of people that float your boat. You don't want to be working with people that annoy you. Number 3. Next, you have to know how you relate to these people. This is a step that I don't think very many people think of when they're in the process of branding their business. So yeah, you can know who your target market is, and yeah, you can know who you are, but unless you fully understand the relationship between your target market and yourself, there's still going to be some disconnect. So what I mean by the relationship between you is, what role are you playing in their life? So, to use another big name brand, let's talk about Nike. So Nike is they're kind of like a jock, they're kind of like a meathead, but they're not like the annoying version of that. They don't use steroids, they're really healthy, they're funny sometimes, but they're also a little bit hardcore sometimes too. But every time you're around Mr. Nike, you're like, well, maybe we should go on a run because it's been a really long time since I've done anything physical. And so they have that pull you along and inspire you to do the thing that is what they sell. So you need to figure out, are you the best friend in these people's lives, your target market? Are you the inspirational leader? Are you the big brother? Are you somebody that's trying to comfort them? Figure out what voice you have and how you relate to those people, and that's going to influence the words you choose down the line. That's going to influence even your colors and the type of logo you choose. So you just really need to figure out how you integrate. Another important thing to consider is, what are those people's expectations of somebody that's trying to be fulfilling the role that you're trying to fulfill in their life. So for instance, if you're trying to be the best friend role, then sometimes you might have some tough love, but you're not going to be the rah, inspirational leader, coach kind of voice in their life. If you're trying to fulfill that best friend role, there's separate types of messaging. So figure out what the expectations are and make sure that you're comfortable fulfilling that role. Otherwise, you need to tweak the last couple of steps a little bit until you're comfortable with the role that you're fulfilling for your target market while you're being 100% authentically you. 4. understand what resonates with them already. What other celebrities and brands and people do they follow? What are the kind of people that they hate? What are your target market's core values? For instance, if they're very right or very left politically, your messaging better not like have a strong left leaning words and emotions if they're very right, for instance, and vice versa is going to be an instant turnoff. So figure out what other companies are really doing a good job of connecting with those people. And it's not that you're trying to copy them, no copying allowed. However, you need to be influenced by those brands. So for instance, we're going to come back to Apple because apparently I'm just an Apple fangirl. You probably know that if you know me. Anyways, so for Apple, like, it's very streamlined. They have a very minimalist aesthetic. They have kind of a all-in-one, like you don't necessarily need to have 30 pieces of technology, you can get by with 2 or 3. And so those aesthetic properties of minimalism, of clean, modern design, of that like kind of Scandinavian influence mixed with a little maybe Japanese influence, like all of that is how they present their brand, and people just eat that up. Like they sell so many of their products. So you know that that really resonates with that kind of hipster or the person that feels like they're technological but don't necessarily want to be like geeky because they don't want to have to like understand how it works. They just want it to work well. People that appreciate good design, like something along the lines of Apple. So if that's your target market, if that represents who you're trying to talk to, then those kind of aesthetics already appeal to them. So you're going to probably want to pull in elements of those aesthetics. Number 5. Next, you need to figure out how you plan to integrate into their world. So you know what role you're trying to play, you know what these people already like, you know who they are. Now, how are you planning on kind of sliding in there and just becoming a normal part of their everyday reality? You need to figure out how you integrate into that world. So we know who we love, who we hate, who we are, like who the target market is, how you integrate into that target market. Now we need to figure out what your little tweaks and uniquenesses are. So maybe you kind of toe the party line, except in a certain couple little areas, you have a little rebellious streak. And so some of that's going to come across in the colors and fonts and tones you use. We'll talk about that a little later. Just realize the things that are making you unique. So the trick is to take things that are already working and just tweak and twist until they represent fully your personality, and that will help you to stand out in probably what's going to be a crowded marketplace. Really quick before I get too much farther, crowded marketplaces tend to scare people, but you can't be scared by things like that. A crowded marketplace means that people are buying that thing already. So there is hope for your business that you will be able to be successful. The trick is you cannot be like what is already in the market. You have to be what's in the market plus one. What's in the market plus a little bit more. So figuring out what your little bit more is, what's your unique twist, what else you are bringing to the table that is not on the table already is really going to help you to be successful in your branding. Number 6. So number 6 is something that really feels counterintuitive. And a lot of people, when I tell my clients this, it feels like I don't want to design your brand, but that is so not true. The rule about branding is you don't have to love your brand. Your brand has to reach the right people. So what do you mean that I don't have to love my brand? Well, what I'm trying to say is if you love butterflies, but you're trying to sell, I don't know, monster truck tires, like nobody's gonna buy a monster truck tire with a butterfly on it. Maybe not nobody, but your target market is going to be very, very tiny. Very tiny. So the point is you need to figure out the symbolism and the imagery that resonates with your target market, and that's what you should be portraying in your logo. Maybe you love really excessive, loud, colorful things, but if your target market doesn't respond to that and they respond to things that are a little more minimalist, then you're gonna have to like tone it down a little bit. And there is kind of a balance. We can still honor parts of your likes and dislikes and your personality, but the core base of what your branding is built on needs to be what sings your audience's song. Your goal goal is to become the Pied Piper in your industry. And if you're like singing heavy metal as the Pied Piper and all of your little mice that are following you, like, I don't know, country music, nobody's following you. You have to learn to sing the song that makes people like, oh, I've got to follow this. I've got to see where this goes. What is that noise? This is amazing. And then they just follow you with no effort. It's that effortless, like, yes, I'm saying something that appeals to you and all you have to do is follow along. Like, that's what you want when you're building your brand. You don't want to have to explain your brand to people. You don't want your branding to be too esoteric. You don't want things to be coming out from right field. You want things that just strike that chord in your target audience already without you having to do much more than just showing them your logo and your colors and your branding. So as you're designing your brand, keep in mind that everything matters. Your imagery matters. Your colors matter. Your fonts matter. Your white space matters. Simplicity really matters. Your tone matters. Every single decision you make in the visual branding aspect of your brand influences how people perceive you. And it happens on a subconscious level. People don't stop and look at your logo and you're like, it's a sans serif font. They must be a very modern company. No, they respond to things emotionally because different things, like different fonts, are tied to different experiences they've had in the past. Different colors are tied to different emotions. And you can find all that kind of information online about what colors represent what. But just realize there are these subconscious ties that people can't explain. They don't even know that they have. And yet you need to figure out how to poke all the right buttons so that it instantly clicks with them. And what you're saying with your product, with your services, matches what your branding is saying about you, so that there's that congruency, which feels like honesty, which feels like trust. So be really careful all the different aspects you pick and be highly, highly intentional. Last but not least, number 7. So I mentioned this at the beginning of the video. Your brand is so much more than your logo. Branding is not the act of picking a font and picking some colors. Branding is the art of being intentional with how you project your business. Your logo, I always explain, it's kind of like the face of your business. So you can have a really pretty face, it can be gorgeous, but if your body doesn't match, you're not getting many dates, I'm sorry. So the point is to have the whole of your package being as beautiful and polished and cohesive as possible. So if you have, again, like the heavy metal country, if you have a heavy metal face but a country body, people aren't gonna get it. And again, that doesn't feel like congruency, which doesn't feel like trust. So everything has to coordinate. What do I mean by everything? I mean the way that you speak. I mean the frequency of your communications. I mean where you show up online. What social media networks do you participate in? What is the point of you even being on social networks? Is it for you to shove your brand down people's throat? Bad idea. Is it so that you can show your product in action? That works a little bit better. Is it so that you can play in the same playgrounds as all the people that you're trying to appeal to? So it's not so much about you showing off your product so much, although that happens occasionally. Is it more about yes, you like mountain climbing. Look, we like mountain climbing too. We just happen to use our stuff when we mountain climb. So it's just connecting with people. It should be a little bit more subliminal and a little bit less in your face, buy my stuff. That's not to say there's not a balance for in your face, buy my stuff. It just can't be the only messages you're sending. It's like at a party. You never want to hang out with a person that only wants to talk about themselves, right? You want to talk to the person that's like, hey, what do you like? Tell me about what you feel. You want to have that give and take. That balance is really, really important. So as you're building your brand, just keep in mind that you need to be really strong on who you are, who you're talking to, and then you just need to project that, not just with your logo and your branding, but with every decision that you make across the board. Every word you say, every place you appear should be intentional and should be reflecting your broader plan of your business goals, where you want to take this. I hope this was helpful to you guys. If it was, please hit the like, please subscribe, and we will keep you strong on your branding journey. Thank you so much. Bye.